welcome out. Another list in our continuing list of lists. This one is 10 ways to help the professor help you. Okay, not that you want to do these things, or you may want to do these things. However, what students do on a regular basis without much thought or do so because they lack experience or concern can be quite hazardous, not only to your grade, but your status in class. Pay heed to these words. Again, I can tell you this is from 25 years of experience as a college professor, and working with other professors, reading quite a bit about what's going on out there in classes with students and as regards to the relationship between professors and students and the things that go on. I've read many research books on this, talking to many a professor. As a matter of fact, I worked at, over the years, probably 10 different colleges and universities as an adjunct. So it's run the gambit. So this is speaking from considerable experience. Number one, attendance is nice, but engagement is better. I've had students with perfect attendance records do next to nothing in class, and I mean nothing. They'll even arrive on time and stay to the bitter end, but open a textbook, open a text or notebook, you'll never see it. And speak up or participate, that's not forthcoming anytime soon. Either if you want to make it worth your while and actually learn something, and I've talked about learning in detail in other videos. Yes, that's what college is for, believe it or not. Please do so. It's not just about taking tests and getting grades and forgetting everything, right? It's why professors are there, learning, speaking to learning. They love to teach, and students, they should learn, okay? Number two, go over the professor's comments on tests and papers. Professors spend a lot of time reading your papers and tests, short answer, essays, leaving pertinent information for the student about the writing, logic, reasoning, research, and so forth. Not reading the comments is like paying for your car to be fixed, but all you do is fill it up with gas and drive off. Also, if you have questions about the paper and the grades, I'd highly suggest reading the comments before you go into the prof's office to discuss things. It's just a logical order of sequence. You're going to get your paper back. There, 99% of the time, there's going to be comments, considerable comments on there, kind of an overview. Professors aren't there to fix every detail, erroneous detail on your paper. We're not going to be going extensively through diction, spelling, word choice, grammar, even, especially in the higher college classes, even college freshmen. That first class, that 101 class that you take, English Comp 101, even that class, you should come in there, obviously, after 12 years of schooling, with a considerable amount of knowledge about some of the basics of writing. And if you don't have it, then professors will most likely send you off to maybe take a short class, maybe a 1 or 2 credit class, or maybe head over to the library and spruce up on some things, or get a tutor, or something or someone to help you get up to snuff. Okay. So number 3, there's things you can do beyond the classroom. If you're interested, there are committees and clubs, course related, that you can get involved in for the semester or perhaps all year. No one knows better than the professor, so make sure you ask them. There may also be lectures, presentations, or meetings that are course related that you can get involved in or involved with. And unfortunately, a lot of students aren't necessarily, again, into the learning per se. Sure, we'll learn something if I can get some points for it and be rewarded in some way, shape, or form. But learning for learning's sake, I'm not that interested, right? Which is a sad commentary on not only education, higher education, but education in general. The curiosity of teaching. Now it's all come down to testing, and teachers testing or grading to the test, and they really can't be as creative as they used to be, and really just looking to stimulate the students' minds and get them interested in knowledge and knowledge acquisition and knowledge curiosity and so forth. To be honest, when things really changed for me, I started looking at things from that perspective, to learn, to really learn. Most of the reading and learning that I've done, 90 some odd percent of it, has come after college, come after the courses that I've taken. And it's meant all the difference in the world in my personal life, in my professional life, in my social life, in my community life, and so forth, right? So there's a lot that this learning can do for you. And it's not just doing it for you. It's doing it for others. When you learn things, and this is why teachers teach, I think predominantly, you want to pass on that knowledge or that information or those insights on to others. You get like a nice CD. I've got some great music here. I've got to share it. Or I got a great book here that I've read. I've got to share it. Or I know this person, this performer. You've got to see it. You've got to see them, right? That type of thing. Number 4, try not to completely ignore the professor. Try not completely ignoring the professor. You'd be surprised the majority of students do just that. When you come in, say hi. What a novel concept. And you can even engage the professor in conversation. They enjoy it, the professors. I assume the students do. Many of them appear to. And they're usually very insightful and fun to engage. Yes, those odd beings called professors actually have some insight and something beyond just course material and knowledge and grades to pass out. I've had classes where anywhere from a few to a handful to nearly half the class engages on a regular basis, and I'm talking even before the class begins. 9 out of 10 times, it brings a lot of light and energy to the classroom. So I have often heard students complain about a class or maybe a professor, being boring. Part of the responsibility of not being boring or making it interesting comes from the student's side of the equation. So keep that in mind. And oftentimes teachers want you to engage, either volunteer or they'll ask you questions. You still kind of have to volunteer, but it's a semi-volunteer basis because they'll eventually point somebody out to answer if nobody volunteers. That's what the class is for. It's for engagement, it's for learning, it's for mental stimulation. It's to acquire knowledge and tips and insights and skills and whatnot, right? For the workplace and outside the workplace. So be engaged. Ask pertinent questions. If you don't know what that means, look it up. Rarely does a professor hear a question pertaining to the material being discussed. And don't ask, when is the paper due? Will this be on the test? What did we go over last class? That's always a good one. In most cases, I have no idea. And students go, what? Well, I know what we covered, but the specifics of it all, oftentimes I'm covering information that I've covered many times before. And each time I cover it in a slightly different way. I'm still giving the core information, so I could probably just say, what did we cover? Go to the reading, But for additional insights via examples and other materials and whatnot that I happen to use on an impromptu basis, just think of it as I'm teaching. Something might come to mind and I'll go to the internet and go look at something, a video or a website or something, or look up some words or look up a definition or look up some encyclopedia entries or whatever, to add to the lecture. But after that's done, all that impromptu stuff, what I did, I forget. Because after that class, I'm on to another class and another class, and I'm teaching multiple classes. And by the time I see my students again, several days have passed and several classes have been taught, and I have no idea. No idea specifically what I did or covered in class. Hopefully questions you have a real curiosity about if you're going to ask questions and can use in writing a paper, help you to write a paper, or when the test comes around. Okay. Number 6, profs would probably ask more questions if more participated. And that's the age-old problem. I have shown my students videos about higher education and teaching within higher education, and what teachers and TAs and others involved in higher education have to go through. And there is this one TA who was leading a discussion group or session. I guess it was part of the class. Maybe it was a 1 credit a week or something. And the TA leads a discussion. And the TA was being interviewed for this documentary. And she admitted, she goes, I'll ask a question. Majority of time, I don't get anything. And I have to pull teeth or cajole people or threaten people. I'll lower your grade. No, I doubt she does that. But few students respond. Okay. So it's really sad. So don't be sad. Don't make a bad or sad or unenlightened environment in the classroom. You can help out too. Don't leave it all up to the professor or the TA. Over time, as students participate less and less, the professor's motivation to ask questions wanes. Yes, we are human, believe it or not. Keep in mind that because you've done your reading before class and thought about the reading, at least minimally, you have a great opportunity to engage the professor. Believe me, when getting students to respond to questions in class is like pulling teeth, as I said. You coming forth prepared and energized will make the professor's day. On rare occasion, there will be a student who has done some reading or has done some thinking along the lines of what you're discussing, and there's some nice input. 80%, 90% of the time, that doesn't happen. So we have to force students to participate. Yes, it's often better to be more engaged than less engaged. I had one student who made it a point to talk to me every class, whether she needed to talk to me or not. I'm assuming this is true. I can't believe she had that much to say about the class. But anyways, that being said, if you have something topic related, assignment related, test or paper related, after class is the best time. Unless it's something that the whole class will benefit from. And I can tell you from personal experience, 80–90% of the time, it was just a question that was germane or specific to the student's inquiry or needs. So, taking up class time for that's not good. So before class is not good because the professor is usually pressed for time. But after class is the best. Or, if the professor has to run off to another class after class, doesn't have time, email the professor. Also, try to get to the question at hand quickly, as at times there may be several other students waiting to speak to the professor. If the professor does have time, I remember I would usually teach on one campus 2 classes, and they were usually back to back with about maybe 20 minutes in between each class. So I didn't have time in between the classes there or before the second class. And even the first class, I was arriving from another college, so I didn't have time even then. So before class, usually not good. After class, better, but it depends on the teacher's schedule. And if I had, that second class, I think I would teach at one college, for example. I would teach 2 classes, one at 10 o'clock and one at 1 o'clock. And by the time that 1 o'clock class was over, I had, a couple hours before I had to be home, or else my wife would make dinner without me. So I would answer or field any questions at that time. And also, just talking to the professor, that's always great. Compliment the professor if it's appropriate. Personally, I've had students tell me that you're the professor whose standard I go by. You do more in one class than many of my professors do all semester. You are the most real professor I've ever had. I think that was the expression they used, which at first I thought, is that a compliment? Does that really matter? Then I realized, yeah, because being real means that you're being honest, you're being to the point, you're not lying usually, or acting all stuck on oneself, or just trying to, ignore the student's needs and focus on your own needs, right? Yes, actual students made by statements. First of all, these comments always catch me off guard because I'm not looking for them, but the feedback is invaluable. Knowing that what you're doing is effective and useful are things that no amount of money can pay for, no amount of money can buy. Number 9, there are many things your professor does that are not required. Things like recommendations, paper extensions, and makeups, choosing additional courses or helping you to choose additional courses, course and curriculums or major suggestions. So if you get some help, please make sure that you say thank you verbally and then again by email. If it's a real big help, then you can do the backup thank you with an email, but generally, if it's something relatively short and brief and simple, straightforward, just a thanks, that's good. But it means a lot. Again, keep in mind, professors are human. Number 10, finally, praise aloud, condone alone. There's nothing wrong with praising your professor publicly, but do not condone in the same manner. On a few occasions, I've had students condone what I was doing in front of the class. I remember there was this one guy, I call him Mr. Shirtless. He used to come into my class, and again, this isn't high school. I'm not your high school teacher. I'm not your principal. I'm not your mommy. I'm not your daddy, right? So if you come to my class and you want to have your shirt off with your headphones in, listening to music, ignoring everything I say, then so be it. And then by the end of the semester, this guy, I call Mr. Shirtless, he came up to me with about 3 weeks left and he goes, "Do you think I have time to start writing the papers?" And I said, "No. Your goose was cooked 2 months ago at least. So forget it." And I didn't say anything. So there's a lesson. Again, professors are very, very, very busy. They don't have time, nor is a requirement to chase, well, especially the bad actors. We do help those who want to help themselves. But if you're belligerent about not participating or not being there or aware, then, I don't think it's the professor's responsibility to, meet him halfway or overextend or extend, never mind, overextend, extend oneself to help out, right? And I can tell you from personal experience, sometimes just being left to fall on your face, flat on your face, that is a great lesson right there. So anyways, if they do condone me in class, I immediately tell them to see me after class or during office hours. One sure way to piss off your professor and get on their bad side is to take them down in front of other students, obviously, right? And I don't have this frail ego or I'm not going to fall apart. I even had one kid, I don't know if he swore at me, but he was using swear words. And I knew his situation. So me not responding to that was for a reason, right? So, you have to think these things out. You have to know your students, at least the problematic ones, that could, those interactions could end up in serious situations. I did not respond, and it was interesting that several of the students came up to me after and said, you just let that guy swear at you, and why'd you do that? And I explained it to them a little bit, the situation, as much as I should. I didn't go into the details or let them understand what was going on personally with that student. But, there's different scenarios, different situations. And in that situation, I just had to let it go. I've had one student, I don't know, I said something, I was just giving some information, some basic facts about, some research. It was psychological research on men or women or something, right? And I gave some of those statistics and facts and data, and one young lady just flipped me the bird. And I just looked at her and went, well, there you go. And I talked to her after class too. She dropped after that. Anyways, if your behavior is too offensive, you may not be long for the class. Be careful. And I don't think I've ever really dropped a student for bad behavior, but like that one young lady, there have been students with bad behavior who maybe got embarrassed or just didn't want to be there or whatever, who dropped themselves. All right. So that's it for this one. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next time for the next list. Take care.